Hello.
So I take it.
All right, who is on a line? Do we have a quorum yet? Do we have the?
I'm on.
We have
Hello?
Grace is up there. Hey, Grace, how are you?
I'm good. Can you see me?
We sure can.
Okay, I'm on my phone. All right.
All right, so let me see. We've got Grace, me, and Tamitha. Who else is on this committee? Has she said whether she's coming? Text to Samaji and see if she's coming. Let me text and see if she's coming to this meeting. Because I need to get it done. I need to get it going. I can't.
Who's crying?
No one, it's just a sound effect. Nobody's
No
crying.
crying, Miles is here. You can't see your little head right there.
I thought it was David.
She's laughing, actually.
That would be about right.
Yeah. Sorry.
Hey, the Cowboys are not in the playoffs, so I am kind of crying.
Well,
I've been crying for a minute.
All right, people, my mic is on. Come on.
now I can't see anybody. But you can see me?
Nothing to see here, nothing to see here.
Oh,
You don't see the
Okay.
table? You
I
don't
don't
see the table?
I don't see anything. I see me.
She mentioned she's on the call.
Oh, that's right. But even on your phone, I think there's a little thing that says view and it gives you different options. Do you see that?
And it should be able to tell you to give gallery view.
Yes.
Okay. Well, keep talking.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm about to call this meeting to order. I'm calling this meeting of the Cultural Planning and Equity Committee of the Arts and Cultural Advisory Commission to order at 4:31 p.m. And I would like for us to start with the first voting agenda items, which only one, which is the approval of the minutes from October 31st, 2024. If I could get someone to make that motion.
I move that we accept the minutes as printed.
Our Chair, David Small, has made a motion. Second?
Second?
Grace, thank you. Grace Glover is second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay. Their minutes have been approved, and we will move on to our next item on the agenda, which is an update from our Director, Martine Philippe, on the Capacity Building Initiative programs.
Hello, my favorite
Hello.
committee. I say to all committees on the record. All right, so we are on our way. We owe you a draft call, if you will. Our intent is to send it to you via email so that in your next meeting, you can vote on it and push it forward as a memo or announcement where we don't necessarily need a full vote from the commission, but we certainly want on record your support to push forward what Yolanda has presented to us in the past. As an overview of what staff, the funding programs team, in conjunction with newly returned Nikki Christmas, who is our arts projects manager, Nikki Christmas is finalizing the draft call. We would like to roll this, with your support after March, roll this out by April 15th, because, as we stated, in a recent allocations committee meeting in November, that generally speaking, mid-April is when we like to roll out calls and announce funds that need to be encumbered so that we can close those funds out late August. So
April is Arts Month, right?
Hello, April is Dallas Arts Month, so that is also intentional in a way. We have been really eager to be able to announce, like our sister organization, TACA, that capacity building is a significant measure for us to support. We had earmarked that $150,000 for this purpose. were at risk of losing it in the last budget cycle, but of course fought to still have that pocket of support for organizations. One question that we have for you to entertain in discussion has to do with when we roll this out, if there are 3 tenets of capacity building you would suggest that we focus on, what would they be? We just think with this very specific, finite, if you will, pool of funding, instead of, making it a grab bag and entertaining a wide spread of asks, if we're very clear about capacity building in these particular pockets, so that we can report on it in a meaningful way and hopefully be able to grow, the support we'll need to make it an ongoing program, not just a pilot. So with that, again, I ask the committee members if you could think of the 3 or what's most important to you, if it's just one tenet of capacity building that you would, put forward as focus areas for us to include in the call. As an example,
Well,
board development would be.
I'd like to entertain, yes, I think that's, first of all, a very good way to do this, given the fact that we do have finite dollars. But one of the things that I have seen almost across the board, and I don't care what size organization we're talking about, but specifically for the ones that we're trying to focus on, which is the Alana organizations, board development is the most important element for all of them. Because the fact, if you don't have a strong board, if you don't have a board that understands its fiduciary responsibility, all the rest of it is kind of, whatever, because you'll rise or sink based on the strength of your board. So I think that has to be top on the list. And then after that, if we go after that, I mean, that could take up all the money right there. Seriously, I mean, when we talk about getting good consultants to work with these boards and help these organizations to build their boards, that could be expensive. But then if we have the capacity to do so, then the second thing that I have seen as really being needed is marketing. Because most of them don't have a marketing person, a designated marketing person. So then we need to talk about, well, how do we form either, collaboratives or collectives or whatever to help these organizations with that. I mean, something has to be done to help them get their product to the public in a more successful way. And then I don't know if there's a third one, but those are the 2 that I feel like are really lacking in most of the organizations. Anybody else going to add to that?
Can you clarify, are only going to be organizations and not?
Or individual, well, maybe we should have, since it's so much limited money, maybe we should have one, because this is a pilot, one artist, and then, a couple of organizations, a few organizations, 3 or 4 organizations, or 2 artists, one in a visual and one in a performing arts capacity.
At this time, we didn't have a limit, or it wasn't for one or. It's just going to be open to.
I think the third one might be, and there's probably a better way to say this, but I would say there's probably, whenever I say this, maybe you'll have the right word for this, but is like a systems, like for a lot of times the smaller organizations are all hands on deck. And so it's like delineation of roles is really trying, as they grow, it's really hard to kind
It's
of.
organizational management.
Okay, yeah, so something like that.
I agree.
And,
But as an
Because it's
individual artist, Tam, what would you say would be the most important thing for the individual artist?
probably, like it's related to marketing, but I think it's also related to
Management.
mission. So where you develop your how you will present yourself to the world.
So it's still management.
It's still
It's
management.
individual artistic management.
I need to correct myself on the record. We've been in referencing organization specifically when we discussed this pilot. Forgive me, I said we had it, but we've been addressing and approaching this with the assumption that this program is for artistic organizations, not for an individual who's not operating as a business, if you will. Does that make sense?
So does that mean that we can't?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't. It's just I wanted to be transparent about the way we've been talking about it
Because I
internally.
remember when we
It's just
originally talked
about-
about it, we were talking about benefiting both the
But we-
individual and the smaller arts organizations.
Certainly.
Chair, that kind of goes to what I was going to ask, and that is, what discretion do we have in the spending? Like, is it,
Commissioners or?
we're talking about, we've got an extra 150, is that what we said?
Less
Less?
the consultant fee.
Less, okay, well, so, how much is the consultant expecting?
Well, she's already completed her assignment and that was a $6,000 project.
Okay, so we're still at the same.
We're close.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, so,
You still have a good chunk of that 150.
yeah, so we've got that much to spend and we have the discretion to spend it amongst
Correct. Correct.
list of how many any organization that's already participating, or can we go?
No, it's the ones that are in.
Oh, okay. We're not,
To be dealing, the pilot has to deal with those. The pilot is to deal with the organizations that are currently funded by OAC, not for organizations that we have not vetted, don't know anything about
Okay.
or anything like that.
so out of,
We know those need help.
then let me ask, is the African American Museum included on that list?
Yes. No,
Yes.
we're hoping that.
Okay.
We're hoping that they don't need it as much as some others now that Margie's there.
But they do have some needs. They have specific
But I'm
needs.
saying, but let Margie decide what that is, because she's there now as their interim director, as their interim CEO. There are others that have a much greater need because they don't have a Margie.
Yes,
So I would rather us look at those organizations that are.
but you're focusing on board development. But
I'm focusing on everything.
okay, but in terms of actual materials that these organizations may need, I know that the African American Museum has a direct need for audio, video.
It's not for this. That's not
So-
what this is.
But do we have discretion to spend any of it on that?
No, that's not technical assistance in the areas that we're talking about, management.
So
This
this
is
has
to
to,
buy
this
them
has to
capital
go,
equipment.
okay, and I just want to clarify that that's an impossibility. Is it
I
a
would like it to
preference?
be an impossibility.
Okay, I understand, I understand that. But I'm asking our director, is that a limitation?
The only limitation, and this is across the board, has to do with the cap in funding support any organization can receive, as noted in the cultural policy. There's like a cap of support.
Okay,
Forgive me for not being able to call out the number, but there's
25%.
yeah, of your operating expense. So as long as they don't hit that cap, all welcome, if you will. But
personally, I would like to know whether the African American Museum has reached that cap.
But see, David, what I'm saying is you don't have the right to say here that they need that when Margie's the person that's going to decide
Then we
what
could
their
confirm with her.
priorities
Then
are.
we should
That's what I'm
confirm with her.
saying.
Okay,
Don't-
then let's
Let's
confirm
not
with
sit
her.
here and talk about what the African American Museum needs until Margie comes to us with, this is what we need.
But
Because you think they need a sound system, she may think that's not a priority.
I would be,
And you wouldn't have the right to
Amazed.
tell her anything about that.
I'd like to say whatever I want to say, but
I,
I know what you're saying.
I'm saying she's there to do the things that she is going to find out needs to be done in order
I
to
agree.
bring them up. And that may not be a high priority when they've got some other major things that need to be addressed.
And you and I both agree on that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that this,
I was thinking that this wasn't in the realm of physical.
no, it's not supposed to be
materials.
capital
It's
capital
actually supposed to
expenditures.
be like,
Organizational.
Okay,
It's
that's
to
what I
build
just my
organizational
question.
support.
Okay.
That's really what this.
And that's
technical
what,
assistance program
that's
is.
why I was asking what the discretion was.
and so, again, I say, so long as a or an organization is eligible and not maxed out in regard to that cap, as we mentioned, they would be eligible to apply. So you would defer to an organization's leadership to, it's not an offering, there's still an application process we're gonna
Yes.
roll out. We're not handpicking in this pilot, because we're not supposed to do that.
And the vetting,
Technically.
the vetting process
will.
is through your office, right?
Yes, we're not, it's not gonna be a panel
No, no, it
component.
should be a staff decision.
But we don't know who that's gonna be yet.
No, because nothing's been rolled out yet, and we haven't had a process by which to get applications to, to vet, to see whose application rises to the top, or what have you.
Okay.
So is there did we say that we
I-
could possibly have individual artists as a part of this pilot?
We'd either have to roll out two separate calls, if you will, to keep, just to keep, I just think there's a different way we would approach building capacity for an organization than you would supporting an individual artist, such that there may even be different focus areas for individuals. If we were going to talk about board development for an org, we wouldn't be talking about that for individual artists. So we'd have to have, a form A and a form B, if you will, is all.
It
And
seems
and
like,
to that end, I would still need to defer to you,
Management would be one of the areas that an artist, individual artist could use.
like acumen, just
Well, yes,
but-
business acumen and what Tam's talking about in terms of, the way in which an artist is able to get their product delivered to the public.
Either by marketing themselves, managing, that it could include creating a website, but a lot of times they feel, even for my own self, like this need to refine and hone like the communication strategy about what it is that they're doing and their own personal mission as an artist. Curating the assets that they want to put forth to show that this is the kind of work they do, having it ready and in a quality fashion, it's not always easy to do, and oftentimes they might benefit from some curatorial consulting,
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
kind of thing, even in performance art and
All of that.
pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
is it possible that we could have the individual artist, could they be part of this pilot program as an individual so that they can learn from what is going to be taught to a large organization? And is there any reason why we couldn't have them be part of this?
Yeah, that's what we were just talking about, Grace, that there has to be a way to, I don't know, Martina's saying that there might be a problem in terms of just the logistics of trying to do two different rollouts for two different,
there won't be an issue, it'll be necessary is all, that we'd have to just have two different forms.
if it's possible.
with
if it's
separate
possible, I would
focus
love to
areas.
at least have an individual artist in the pilot so that we can have,
Yeah,
because we talked about having individual artists as a beneficiary of this particular technical assistance program. If we don't roll them out in the pilot, we don't know whether or not what's possible with the individual.
Gotcha.
But we could even target it. We could even say that for the individual artist, what we're going to do is try to find someone whose expertise is curatorial consulting to help an individual artist put their product in that context. You know what I'm saying? Is that might be the offer that's available for an individual artist.
Arts Activate, we attract individual artists,
Yes.
projects with.
Yeah, oh, no, yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's that we
Bet those
roll
artists.
them out like COP technical assistance, and then like if you've been awarded an Arts Activate, then just an Arts Activate recipient technical assistance.
Right.
And then,
Those are-
so that they know where to go
Right.
with their application, and they'll have, and also we'll understand who's who.
There are some.
Oh, I'm sorry to leave them out.
Cap
sorry to
and
leave
arts-
them out.
Cap and, it might even be more appropriate for cap
Yeah, that's true.
than.
That is really
because
true.
They're the ones trying to market themselves.
That's very true.
I've engaged with some folks who I know have cultural, sorry, I've engaged with some, especially
Just kidding.
some older folks who have some really, cultural
Yes,
knowledge who aren't necessarily,
savvy.
yeah, savvy with presenting that, but we would love to have them
Mhm.
be invited into spaces more often, but people just aren't really aware of what it is that they are doing and how beneficial. they-
Noted.
Could we also get the input of some of the organizations as to what they feel would have the most impact to them?
Well, they're gonna come to us with an application and they're gonna say what it is they think they need.
Oh, okay.
And then the applications will be vetted based on what those needs are, and then we'll say which ones rise to the top in terms of, I mean, we can't fund them all,
Yeah.
but, you'll decide what
Just
the.
say grant writing.
I am, the intention is, to use what the consultant put forward as the research and basis for the pilot, take the learnings from the pilot combined with a bit more community engagement for feedback and input to land an ongoing program.
Yes.
So while we may not have a lot of time to engage in that level of engagement for the purpose of the pilot in regard to just, asking, what would you like to see? And what would you, some of the pilot needs to inform our position and also the folks who are experiencing the pilot, give them, a way to have the experience and then give us some feedback like, you know what, I really would have appreciated X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Instead of, or in addition to, and on, so that we can build out the bigger machine for
Yeah.
years to come, for future years.
Could we do a random sampling of organizations or artists? Just say, we don't have time to do a lot of them, but we just want to get the opinions of one this size, one this size. Even less formal than a real survey, but just 5 or 6 organizations and say, what do what would you feel would be the most impactful?
Well, part of the consultant's work was to gather that information for our review.
Yeah, she already did. She already
Earlier
surveyed a
on
bunch of
last fiscal year, that informed the work
Yeah,
that she
Yolanda
presented
surveyed
to
a
us.
bunch of organizations to get to what she was recommending we do. That's how she got the framework for what it is she was suggesting the technical assistance program consists of. So she's already done that work.
And what we really hadn't done was ask y'all. This,
Oh, okay.
literally, we haven't asked this body. We're
So
here.
her
for your
recommendation, this is her recommendation, board development?
No, she's briefed us on a larger pool
Okay.
of tenants to consider. We need to bring it on down. We really
Do we-
do, because it's only a pilot. It's
And
only a pilot.
And I apologize.
That's why she asked, that's why Martine
Mhm.
asked, what do we think are the top 3 things that we ought to be helping these organizations
Mhm.
with?
Mhm.
And I'm saying, as a person who's observed these organizations over the years, board development is a very major need.
Mhm.
We
I
have
think
seen
we have seen,
boards all across, and I'm talking across the spectrum. It's not just the smaller organizations, that all of them are in
oh.
trouble.
yes.
But that needs to be top on the list, because without a strong, effective board, it doesn't matter what else you got going on. Your organization can go down the tubes just because of your weak board,
True.
you know,
We've,
or an unfocused board, or a board that doesn't really know what it is a board does,
mhm,
you know.
That's.
an ineffective board.
Yeah.
So,
No, but yes, but yeah, I understand what you're saying, and our intent after the pilot, again, we're gonna have to survey all the folks who are in relationship with us so that we can be more targeted in our effort. This is, in the spirit of a pilot, a smaller swing, not even to say smaller, it's just, it's an initial swing that's gonna inform the next time we step up to plate to build out what we hope to be one of another, a stable
Ongoing
program
program.
that we offer.
so when we look at the organizations that we're familiar with, we're identifying what we observe to be deficiencies that could have an impact on their programs.
In naming specific focus areas with the call, technically, yes, we are.
Okay.
And we expect to have quite a competitive pool, to be frank. I don't see a world, this pool of folks that we have right now, they all have very similar needs, to be frank. Which is, a function of the times, a function of, what still folks are enduring following COVID, and then some historic just ailments that our arts organizations are having a tough time breaking up with. So the goal is to test this out prayerfully, see some benefit, because this is to their benefit, and then be able to roll it out in a meaningful way permanently with, if the budget allows.
Okay, so, Martina, our next step would be,
Next steps internally, we are again gonna finalize the draft, get it to you via email, take your edits that you, receive your responses, and have this printed copy for you in our March CPE committee meeting. I assume would make it a voting item at that time for your pleasure, and then announce and launch the call during Dallas Arts Month.
all right, that sounds like a plan.
Yes, for organizations, what I've noted include board development, marketing, in addressing the lack of staff capacity these organizations may have to that end, and then organizational management, and support for building out systems that will support organization success. And then for individuals, some type of management and acumen training, and something in the vein of we'll find the phrase, but something in the vein of curatorial consulting.
Which of their works would yield the biggest
So, all right,
impact?
And another follow-up was Chair Small asking for us to share if the African American Museum has met their cap as noted in the cultural policy. So we'll follow up with you on that.
okay. So, let's move to number 2 on the agenda, which is a discussion on equity regarding facility accessibility for small and mid-sized Alana organizations. So I don't know, we didn't really have, for this meeting, we didn't actually ask you to come with a report, but that, I just want to note that we're still needing to, I guess, further explore that whole idea of mapping the city to figure out what's out there from a facility standpoint and what we need to do to help these organizations identify the resources that the city does have for facilities.
Correct. Since our last meeting, our marketing team did not do a deep dive, but noticed that Space Finder, the former landing page, was back active.
Is it?
Right. And so there are two things happening, right? Two things in motion. One is our web page is migrating to a .gov. So it's been really wonky in the layman's terms, so that there are parts of the dallasculture.org page that just aren't operating as they used to. You might hit a dead end. Our IT department is just working on moving things to the .gov platform, and in some instances that's been negatively impacting our website presence. The Space Finder discovery, we didn't intend to discover that the Space Finder page was live because no one's manning that. No, none of our staff. No, it's not operational for us. We would like some clarity on one, if I understand what transpired in the past, but looking forward, if Space Finder is the thing and is the office's charge to manage, if you will, keep up to date, be seeking or be in a position to receive information about space that's available to artists. One, would that be direction that you give us to really bring that thing back? Figure out how to beef it up, get it squared away, and have it on, transition it along with everything else to our .gov, or based on the historic experience y'all had, simply work on having knowledge of space that's available and sharing that knowledge when we receive direct inquiries about it. like Public Art has done for their installations?
I mean, frankly, Martine, I tried to use Space Finder back in the day.
I heard it
and
was a
It
problem.
really was very, very difficult to navigate. It was
That's
not
what I've
kept-
heard.
Existed. That was helpful to know that some things existed, but sometimes they didn't, right? Sometimes they were no longer as available.
Well, a lot of times what I found was that no one was keeping track of these places. So some of these places didn't exist. You know, they was something that
They
happened.
turned,
and then
they turned into something else.
Yeah, exactly, and so. So, so that to have something like that is, you really do have to have it managed. And that's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Yes, it
So I would say that the better solution would be to have us be a receptacle for getting information. And then, like you say, a Google map that just says, "Hey, check this out, check this out." You should who?
Well,
Visit Dallas?
I have a question.
Money coming in from wherever.
Yeah. Yes, Miss Grace.
Okay, so what about, I mean, sorry, the dog's barking. I know a guy, who is in commercial real estate, and basically what he does is he goes around looking for space or office space and retail space. And that's pretty much all he does. So, and I don't know how he gets paid, but I mean, could we look at something like that where we just work with a commercial realtor that has his finger on the pulse of what's available?
Well, that's a possibility, except all of these spaces are not going to be commercial spaces. For instance, there are churches that have spaces in them. There are apartment complexes that may have a what do you call it? A clubhouse room. There are a lot of different ways that space could be
Right. Okay.
gotten. So I don't want to keep it only in the commercial. And mainly because the commercial world is the most volatile for artists, because they're the ones who will quickly throw artists out the minute they got somebody to rent the space. And so that's not the best solution for artists. What we need is spaces that are a lot more about altruism, so to speak. These churches that want to let their utility.
Now, is that a charge for each district's
Well, that's what we had
commissioner
talked about. That's what we had
to
talked
bring
about.
forward at least,
We talked
some
about the
type of a
commissioners being aware of their own district.
Yeah.
And
calming
bringing
of
forth to
calming
us.
of their district?
Yes, that's exactly what we had talked about the last time. This was a charge for the commissioners to look at their own districts, to see what kinds of resources were in their own districts, and then come back to us with.
Shade at my laundromat ideas, but
Laundromat.
No,
All
it's a
right.
whole project in New York, the laundromat.
Then I'm not mad. I'm not mad. So then do we reignite the invitation to commissioners
think we
next
do.
month?
I think we do.
Just to say, we're gonna need that level of
Involvement.
expertise from you about your hood. And let us,
Yes,
and then let us
absolutely.
build out the map component based on what you may share with us.
And just comment there, before we do that, I think we should also include enough detail in what we asked of them in terms of how the offering would work. For instance, let's say a church wants to participate. Are we basically going to make the information available for the commissioner to go out and say, hey, this is the program that we're doing, and we would like for you to participate. And if you participate, this is what you get. This is what we expect, to have that information, because I think right now it's a little bit fluid to have that conversation with any facility to tell them what they get, what they're expected to do, because they have some liability. You start bringing city folks in there, we probably want.
Well, I think let's clarify this though. We're not trying to be the people who are running this stuff. I mean, the idea is to identify, artists and arts organizations have to take responsibility in this thing.
True.
I mean, so the idea is to let them know this is all, that's all. It's up to them to decide if they want to negotiate a deal with a space or whatever. We're not trying to run this as a OAC.
Wouldn't want some of the work that we do. in
Right.
Space, you know what I mean? And so, and there would be some people who won't.
I mean, in my mind, it was not that the OAC would run this program. This would be something that we would say, here's some resources. Y'all can go out and check them out, see if they work out for you. They're in your district.
Okay.
That's it, because the staff, we don't have the staff to do a program, demand a program like this. Nor do
And
I
so
think we want to get
our
involved
marketing-
from the standpoint
So our marketing would be to the facilities to see if the facilities would want to participate and make available their space to artists we could send their way. Is that basically the?
yes,
the
basically
whole
it's
program in a
identifying,
nutshell?
the whole program is identifying potential sites in specific districts, because we want the commissioners to identify those spaces in their districts that would be interested in having an arts activity. Period.
Activity or like rehearsal space and everything too, right?
Well, activity, whatever it is.
Oh,
It could be,
okay.
it could be a poetry reading, it could be a rehearsal, it could be a whatever.
Depends on the space.
Mhm. So we're not telling them, this is what you'll be getting. It's like the artist, it's up to the artist.
I'm thinking it's gonna be an actual performance piece or a community thing on Saturday. I'm not necessarily thinking it's gonna be a gallery event unless it's a gallery event of the work that the people in that community created. But I might think about a doctor's office or like community does it is a, it's the only mental health facility we have. We might do, if they have a wall, maybe there is a gallery event there. Depends on what the space is. So.
Then this is what we'll do. If we're going to roll this out, I guess we'll have somebody on the committee responsible for explaining it. And I guess between the chair and the director, y'all can roll it out.
Yeah.
Started my list, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I mean, but the
It
list,
should seem like that hard to me, but I guess because I've been doing this for a really long time, y'all. District 5 that doesn't have a cultural center and has to beg, borrow, and, you know.
And steal. But yeah, no, absolutely. I think we talked about this in the meeting last year. We talked about having the commissioners be the source of information
yes.
for in their district of what might be available. And my thing is that I don't think that it should be us telling artists, we've got spaces for you. It's, here are some resources, you all can check them out, see how they work. Here's some possible places for you to look at, and then they can go out and do it. Or not, it's up to them, it's what they want to do. Does that sound reasonable to you, Director Martine?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
May I ask a question that is related but not exactly? When, I know, I had remembered that someone said that they were hoping that to de-silo some of our organizations, and I've been thinking about space a lot and eco-dev and, land use and all of that. And is there like a possibility to de-silo some of this, lack of space, for artists, and by partnering with, some of the other departments?
It's always, to me, there's always that possibility.
I'm just putting it out there.
There's always that possibility. I mean, to me, working within the government structure is always an easier, I mean, like I'm doing this whole blues festival that I'm gonna be doing is the last part of my national project with the Eloise Lundy Recreation Center, and BC Workshop in the neighborhood, they're all in the neighborhood, so I'm not going outside of the neighborhood. And I think we don't do enough of that. We don't do enough of looking at this, because the city has a lot of property, a lot, that goes underutilized. And so, yes, that's absolutely a possibility.
Driving around looking for our exhibition visions and just
Mhm.
seeing lots of
Yeah.
properties. Some of them will have asbestos issues, but.
Well, if you're not trying to live there, if you're only trying to be there for a moment,
Yeah.
probably be all right.
But I think that's a fantastic resource on the city properties,
We've got lots of those.
Yeah.
So, all right, so it seems to me that the next thing we want to do is to, at the next meeting, the next commission meeting, full commission meeting, we want to have on the agenda a conversation around this topic of each commissioner checking out their own district to see what possibilities there might be for space. And they need to really stretch their minds in terms of not just think of the traditional way of, oh, there's a storefront, that might be, but how many apartment complexes are there that have space? How many, underutilized church spaces? How many underutilized other retail kinds of spaces that might want to do something? Even what are the possibilities of a retail person like you were talking about? They might want to have an exhibition in their spot,
Yes.
temporary.
A
temporary-
pop-up, like a pop-up.
Yeah, like a pop-up, yeah. So, all right, so that's what we'll do for next month's
Okay.
commission meeting. We'll have that as an item to discuss. Okay. All right, so then our final item on the agenda is the discussion of Soul Rep's facility needs as we look at the possibility of them becoming our next residency opportunity at the South Dallas Cultural Center. And I just want to go on record saying that they have, they're celebrating their 30th year in existence and still being like a gypsy organization because they don't have a home. And the one thing I know for sure is that you cannot build a substantial audience with no home. I mean, even if it's not the home you own, if it's not a place that people can identify you with on an ongoing basis, it's very difficult to sustain an audience over time. And that's where they are now. They're hitting that wall of, people going, well, you're where? Last month, weren't you there? Yeah.
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt you. What happened? Do you know what happened with the plan for Margot Jones at Fair Park?
Yeah, that became something that they gave to Broadway Dallas. Yeah, like they needed it. But anyway, I'm sorry, I'm on record on myself saying these disparaging things. But in any event, so yeah, Fair Park first gave that to Broadway Dallas. So, I mean, and I'm just going to tell from my standpoint as having been a former director of the South Dallas Cultural Center and having informally had them in residence for the entire time that I was there, they are a very good organization to have, and they're very responsible. They brought new audiences. All of that worked out really well.
Can we discuss offering a contract to them to?
No, we can't do anything until Martine said, if we're talking about a real residency, we want it to be like Caramia and Teatro Dallas have here,
Yes.
which is that it's
Like a-
simple.
And I was asking our director, but I was kind of looking at you. Is there a process? Like, how could we get to that point of offering an agreement to them to reside there? What are the steps in that?
Well, we are actually finalizing our use agreement with the resident theater groups at the Latino Cultural Center. That documentation is obviously specific to the cultural center here, Latino Cultural Center. However, I'm certain there's a way to use it as some semblance of a template that
Exactly.
other cultural centers
Yes.
could use for the same purpose. So,
Could we, I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, we are at the end of the road in regard to finalizing the staff and theater company team members work on that. Next steps will include the attorneys
Yes.
finalizing the draft documents, bringing those documents through the commission to quality of life and to council prayerfully
But in
for
order,
some.
but in looking at Soul Rep's situation.
And then, I'm sorry, yeah, you were asking specifically to Soul Rep.
Yes.
For us, on the record, of course, we've noted that John Spriggins is leaving South Dallas Cultural Center as manager in another week. And so absent a human resource there, we want to prioritize staffing the cultural center to
Okay.
ensure that there's capacity to support the presence of resident theater groups, because that's a marriage. Has to be some folks on in the building
Buy-in.
to host a resident theater group, of course. So that's the office's priority right now is staffing. Then we can move forward with the next step of consideration for groups to be in residence there.
Okay.
So
So
what
could
would the
we-
timing be on that? Because,
Well, staffing, of course, we don't want to leave the South Dallas Cultural Center without management into the next quarter. So the role should have been posted by last Friday. So my goal is to ensure that it's posted for the public by Monday. And I have instructed the hiring manager to close it out by the end of this quarter. We're gonna leave it open for 2 weeks, move through the referrals the following week, and interview through hiring end of March is my goal. It's aggressive, but it's not impossible. But it's just, we can't, excuse me, entertain lengthy vacancies at our cultural manager center positions. It's just
Okay.
not wise.
Okay, just coming back to sole rep, so could we say that we're like in the,
fiscal year.
just have some sort of goal in terms of having them contracted to be in there, and since we've already got the template for the LCC, it should.
We don't have it yet. We don't have it yet. We
Okay.
don't have it yet. I'm not willing to commit to a timeline
Oh,
on
okay.
it today. I just don't think it's wise for me to do that
Oh, okay.
because they're just some matters that are gonna turn into being outside of my hands, like
Oh,
the
okay.
timeline once the draft template gets with the city attorneys. I don't have a template to reference until that document
Oh, okay.
is finalized. So
That's
really,
totally
to me,
reasonable.
it would make sense once the document starts moving through the commission into quality of life to start looking at, trying to plot a future forward for other cultural centers who
Thank you.
have companies who are interested in embarking on a similar style of relationship with us.
Okay, and if we don't make it, and certainly I totally understand not having a timeline, could we state that it is a goal for us to eventually have that?
I do believe, not only for the cultural centers, but also for the black box theaters that exist at libraries to have some similar plan of engagement where theater companies have oversight of either use, not only use, but activating those spaces as well, because those spaces are in need of attention.
Okay, I totally get it. But once again, I'm just coming right back to
But
sole
also,
rep.
we don't control the library, so we can work with them, but we don't have control over their black box theaters, right?
No.
They're shared spaces. Those black boxes are,
Spaces, we don't control.
we don't
the
control,
library
we don't staff them, if that's what you
Right,
mean by
yeah.
control, but
Right.
the intent from the onset was that to be a shared
Exactly.
endeavor.
Yeah, it never quite got there.
We gotta get it there.
Does the bathhouse have, or have they ever had a resident theater? I thought Echo was one, but I wasn't.
But everything was informal.
It was
None of these things were formalized. We all had.
We only
different
have
companies that we worked with.
Academia
That's the
and
first one
Teatro
we tried.
Dallas as a resident theater companies who have a relationship with the OAC. That's it.
Yeah, everybody else that did things like that, did it like I did. It was an informal, sort of relationship. I had several arts organizations that I called resident companies because they had, carte blanche kind of use of the space for things that they needed.
I was just thinking, I don't know what the calendar is like, but if it was taking too long, if Soul Rep could maybe engage.
But they
with
can
the
still
bathhouse.
use the South Dallas Cultural Center. It's not like they can't use it.
But I think,
But to have the relationship stable, they need to be able to use it in a season, not just here and there.
because once you're a resident, then you know what time you can
Right.
come, you have access, and you can depend, you know.
I've been saying that for years.
Yeah.
About the black box theaters in the libraries. Yeah, I mean, because that's how,
Let's have these comments on
I mean, the thing is like, it's exhausting to keep doing work and not have an actual location where people know you're going. Because especially as an individual artist or a small organization, because I know every weekend I can go to OC3 and engage with something there. I know I can go to the bathhouse, I know that, and or a theater, and just having to kind of recreate, it felt like a little bit of recreating the wheel every time we did something in a different space in Pleasant Grove.
Well, and as
So
I said, you can't build an audience like that.
It's hard.
Well, then, I think what I would like to see happen is that once we do have the paperwork moving through the channels that will get it finalized, that we invite Soul Rep to come and meet with us to talk about how they envision such a relationship playing out. Because I also want to look at the possibility of if they become that, then perhaps they can become the entity that finally activates the recreation center that has not been. It's the, shoot, what was her name? It's the woman's name that was used to be the rec center director. No, it's her name. It's her name. I'm trying to remember what it is. It's on Second Avenue, right next to JJ Rhodes. It was supposed to be totally activated as a sort of South Dallas Cultural Center annex. And nothing was ever done with that. And it's a great opportunity for, if they were a theater resident company using the theater space for performances, they could use that space to be where they are actually housed, so they wouldn't be taking up all the space in the.
Like admin space.
The admin and
Okay.
storage and all those kinds of things, and then have direct access to JJ Rhodes, which is literally across the street from them. So they would have like a captive child audience, because they do, children's theater and stuff like that. It would be perfect.
Understood.
It was
Be great for the community.
absolutely. So, and then they could also be the one that actually, manages other groups coming in and using the space who are like Arts Activate groups who need a space. So it would be that kind of a situation, but then they would have the theater at the South Dallas Cultural Center for performances.
Are they having any difficulties now?
Oh, absolutely.
Anything that,
It's all
that could be
financial.
addressed? Well, I mean, anything that we could,
No, I'm saying it's financial in the sense that they're spending $1,000 a month on storage.
okay.
So
So is there,
if they didn't have that,
pending this process, is there anything we could do to assist them at this point?
well, we could make it easier for them to get into the South Dallas Cultural Center until such time. It's now that we don't have a roadblock.
How would we,
I didn't name a roadblock. I just said there was a roadblock.
that's funny.
I was like, not yet, I have 2 things to say.
But it's
I mean, I'm saying, to me, the serious question is making sure that we are not an impediment to them moving themselves forward. Because if we're talking about an equity situation, this is a theater that definitely deserves our attention. They're already a COP organization, so we have gotten them back into that process because they fell out when they went on hiatus, If they had stayed on the road that they were on in the 90s, they'd probably be exactly where Caramia is, as far as, they were all in that same LEAP program.
Okay.
But I would like us to recognize that we can play an important role in this success of Soul Rep growing themselves. They now have full-time and part-time staff, which, that was building back up to that. And they need a place that's stable. So. Anything else?
No, I was,
Grace, did you have anything you wanted to add to this conversation?
No, I think I've said pretty much what I felt I needed to say, but I will say, just going back to the discussion that we're going to bring this up at the next commissioners meeting about everybody looking for space, or rather, going into their district to find possible places for artists that they can then go in themselves and negotiate. I think that's a great idea, because I remember we did talk about that last year, and there's been lots going on, but I think it's a really good idea. I mean, I have some pretty good ideas myself, and so if everybody can just work on that, I think that would be great. I think that would help a lot to put our thinking caps on and just do this as a collective effort.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think think I've brought this up before as it's regarding space, but it's also in reference to something you said. A lot of, I think, theaters, pay for warehouse space. And I feel, yeah, I've heard this from more than one and how much it's eating into their budget. And I was just thinking that we're like maybe missing an opportunity to also think about city space. EcoDev actually creating a warehouse space that's shared, so the money that we're giving to these arts organizations isn't just getting, as we would say, farted, or in my house, farted away, just for space storage, where it would actually be like, what is the word?
Collective.
It would be like, we would be not killing two birds with one stone, but I'm trying not to say that, but we would be mutually beneficial. That arts ecosystem we're talking about, like, then we have like a space where people that is maybe isn't as expensive as the little warehouses they're building, that's maybe it's prorated, maybe the city isn't using it anyway, so it's saving them, you know what I mean? Their money's going farther because that money isn't being spent on that. And then there's some jobs created for people who can manage the space. I'm just saying,
That's a good idea.
because I think at least that's the third in the last year of talk about a different theater, 3 different theaters I've heard talk about storing things.
Well, all of them have, most, they don't have their own facility, they're storing somewhere.
And
they're
even
paying.
if they do, sometimes they.
And it's not
because
just.
They don't have big enough.
Right, and it's not just theaters. I mean, it's places like for instance, the African American Museum stores off-site. There are all kinds of storage needs that these arts organizations have that they are paying money for, big money.
And that was just
Okay.
based on that, but then it's not on the agenda, but I thought it was gonna be the discussion about programming for folks with special needs. 'Cause
Yeah, I didn't put it on the agenda because it was all this other stuff, and I wanted to make sure that we got through in an hour.
Okay,
So we'll put that on the agenda for next conversation.
I will just say that I worked so hard last year to get folks into just the school to get that program up, and it's gonna be the end of the year. They're not gonna be able to get back in, the cap artists. And over there, Spruce, yeah. And so it feels very defeating.
Is that a change? Is that a leadership? I'm sorry. Is that a leadership? I'm sorry. Is
No,
that
it's not
school
a leadership
decision
change.
or?
It's just hard to get a program in there. I mean, it's hard to get somebody to email you back. I had to go there physically and then to the school, and then to make it happen, and then to get it scheduled, and then to work, especially in April, there's so much testing, and it was just a lot. And it's hard to get groups of folks with cognitive disabilities to something after school because they ride the bus home, maybe their parents are there, they're riding to a community center,
Okay, well, we're gonna put that on the agenda for next
I just
meeting,
don't.
so that, because that deserves a lot more conversation about, are we going to be able to work in the DISD
Yeah.
realm? Because I know, not necessarily nothing to say about DISD.
Well, and
So that, we'll put that on as a, Top priority.
collaboration or like.
okay, we'll put it on the agenda.
Glenn and I, last fiscal year, had been meeting with central office staff about, we didn't have a formal name for it yet, but essentially it's a cultural experience project that was going to align each grade level with a specific
Okay, I'm gonna
cultural
stop you there
exp-
because that's not on our agenda.
Sorry, Toma.
I would like to have that be discussed
Sorry,
at the
Toma.
next meeting. And we will talk about that in depth next meeting. And because we've gone through all the things on the agenda for today. And I would like to call this meeting officially to an end, at 5:28 PM. All right.
Thank you.
Bye, Ms. Glover.
Yes, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, Grace.
Bye. See you next month. If not before.